I think so. But the true character and the true sense of who you are comes out, as to your point, when no one's watching.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Law of Business. I'm Jamil Jama, and I interview entrepreneurs that can help you to start and grow your business. And in this interview, we're going to be talking about balanced leadership, why values matter, and legacy culture. Mostly, it's going to be about leadership, because our guest today is Rocky Romanella, and he's the founder and CEO of 60 Management Services, and he's an expert, leadership coach. Right, Rocky?
Yes. We're 360 Management Services. So at 360, we teach leadership training, and I do a lot of keynote speaking on the topic of leadership.
And they have over 40 years of leadership experience. So Rocky is definitely the person to be learning leadership from. 40 years, right, Rocky? 40 years?
Yeah, over 40 years. I guess it just means I'm getting old, Jamil.
No, not 40.
40, yes.
You look a lot younger than that, though. You look like
well, thank you.
You look 40. You don't look older. Okay, and so before we dive into the interview, I'd just like to give you all a bio of who Rocky is and what he does. Well, he does leadership, you know that already, but I'll just give you all a bio. I'll tell you all about Rocky Romanella. Rocky Romanella is the founder and CEO of 360 Management Services, a management consulting firm specializing in keynote speaking, leadership development, and consulting services. With over 40 years of leadership experience, Rocky delivers results by developing and implementing his balanced leadership model across enterprise operations. This includes a laser focus on customer needs, employee empowerment, and the demands of shareholders. Rocky is an experienced CEO who led one of the largest rebranding initiatives in franchising history, the UPS Store, revolutionizing the $9 billion retail shipping and business services market. While leading the UPS Store, the network increased retail units, same-store sales by 5.8%, outpacing the National Retail Federation results of 4.6% during a recession, which is real impressive. He also led the integration of more than 20 acquisitions that became UPS supply chain solutions and led its improved financial performance, capabilities, and global network footprint. Rocky has the rare ability to see a clear vision of the changing business landscape, the passion to develop strategies, tactics, and metrics to drive desired results. So it's a real pleasure to have you on the show, Rocky. Rocky, thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure, Jamil, and it's a pleasure to speak to your audience.
Thank you so much. In the last part of your bio, it says this is very interesting that you have the rare ability to see a clear vision of the changing business landscape. So you can see new trends coming, right?
Yeah, I think I was fortunate through my career to have many different jobs, both at UPS and outside of UPS. And I think that because I was always involved in some of the newer things we were doing, for example, when we purchased mailboxes, et cetera, and rebranded to the UPS Store, there needed to be a vision and a strategy. And so through that, I got the opportunity to start to look and see and feel and start to understand, well, where are things going? And I think if you look at businesses today, so many businesses started out in one place. I'll give you an example on the technology side. I'm sure that years ago, Gateway 2000 never thought there wouldn't be a Gateway 2000, or everyone was going to have an AOL account. And so if you think about it, how do companies that were that large and that strong in the marketplace, how is it that today they're really not as relevant as they were back there? And I think it's because they sometimes lose their way as they're growing and developing, and are not seeing, where should my organization go? Where should I be?
Because that's a good skill to have, because the people who get in early are the ones that make the most money or succeed. Well, we're talking about business, so the one are the businesses that make the most money, right?
Well,
So you
not
have to
always. I
get.
mean, they initially, but if they're not always thinking of new ways to grow, when I speak to I spend a lot of time with small business owners and entrepreneurs, and I think that I always tell them that the most nervous you should be is when you're on top of your game, because the concern is things are going well. I'm in a good zone right now. My business is doing well, and I'm making money. That's when you should be the most nervous, because at that moment you should be already thinking about what's my business going to look like 6 months, a year from now, 18 months, 2 years from now. And I think that that's what keeps business alive. And in the U.S.
By remaining uncomfortable, isn't it? They get too
Yeah,
comfortable.
yeah. Well, it's not so much so comfortable. They start to feel good about what they're doing, and so they think, okay, well, but the question is it sustainable, and will it be sustainable in its current fashion? I think if you take a company like Walmart, for example, I mean, at one point, everyone that was the behemoth in the retail market space, and today it's Amazon, right? And I think if Walmart had to do over again, they probably would have came out with an e-commerce strategy much quicker than they did, because now they're behind the Amazons, and the original retailer would have been Sears and Roebuck in the States, which had a huge catalog business and was all over the U.S. and today is almost non-existent. So those companies, the first 100 years of a company's existence doesn't guarantee the second 100 years.
Like Toys R Us as well. Amazon took them out of business.
Yeah, think about Toys R Us. Great. I mean, there's the old slogan, "We're all Toys R Us kids." No, there's a lot. The next generation is not going to have the opportunity potential to be a Toys R Us kid.
So that's businesses usually go out. Why do businesses usually go out of business? Is it bad leadership?
I'm not necessarily sure it's bad leadership. I think it's strategic leadership, right? There's many people who can lead businesses in a tactical day-to-day sense. But I think it's a little bit more of a rare ability to have some vision and to have some insight, some intuition as to where you think businesses is moving to. And then I think it takes the courage to make that decision. So how do I make that decision? I can see it; it's there. I believe in my heart of hearts that the business is going to go there. But now I have to to your point, get out of my comfort zone and move my business there. And am I willing to do that? And so I think that's sometimes a difficult. I mean, think about the early days of technology. Everybody was comfortable in the current way they did business. And when they were pushed to doing it more automated, or they were pushed to doing it, in a more tech savvy way, they resisted it. People felt more comfortable on paper when they really needed to be in handheld devices.
Definitely. So, Rocky, what going back to the topic, the interview topics that we're going to talk about, balanced leadership. What is balanced leadership? It's the first time I've heard that term.
Well, to me, it's important that when you make decisions or you view potential things that you're working on or potential places that you want to go, I believe it's important to do it in a balanced approach. And what I mean by that is that there's three main constituents that you always want to make sure are represented in all your decision-making process. The first one is your customers. Obviously, you want to make sure that you understand the needs of your customers, take it from their perspective, and view it from their perspective. But I also believe your people are an important part of the process. They have to execute on your behalf. They execute the brand on your behalf. They have to understand what it is that you're deciding to do and what role they play in it. And then the final is to view things as if you're the owner of the business. Now, small business owners, entrepreneurs are always in that mindset. But in larger corporations and companies, if you can drive down that vision of ownership down to that frontline level, I think it goes such a long way. And so for me, the balanced approach is, as I'm looking at new opportunities, as I'm looking at my decision-making process, I like to view it as thinking like a customer, making sure my people feel like valued individuals. They know what roles they play. They know they're part of the solution, not part of the problem. And am I acting like an owner? If I own this, if I own this candy store myself, this was my candy store. If I was writing this out of my personal checkbook, would I make this decision? And to me, that gives you great balance, and all three constituents are represented in that decision-making process.
So, acting like a acting like an owner will make you care more about the company and lead better, right?
I think that's true, and it also helps you make, I think, better decisions, right? I mean, some of your listeners are entrepreneurs, and so no one understands that better than a small business owner, because for them, they hit the cash register at night, the drawer opens, and they pay their people, they pay their vendors, and what's left in the cash register is what's theirs. And so they take great care and stewardship of their business. Well, if in larger organizations you can give your people that sense, and as you make decisions, you're thinking, well, okay, if this was my business and I was writing the check, would I do this, and how would I spend the money? And you become more vested in the decision and more vested in the process to make it successful, I believe.
Yeah, and larger companies also give them some shares, like 3-4%. They give them some percentage of the company so that they would care more about the company, basically make it theirs as well.
Yeah, that's very true.
I've seen that happen.
Some of the best run companies, have an equity stake or equity share or ownership stake for their people, and that gets everyone to feel like they're part of the team. That's very true.
Definitely. So, Rocky, what are your leadership beliefs, and do you live your values?
Well, I think values are such an important part of your life as an individual, your personal life as well as your business life. And I think there's three questions that leaders and I think people in general have to ask themselves. So who am I? What do I stand for as an individual, and what do we stand for as a company? What do I stand for as a leader? And what are the things I won't compromise? I mean, the first two are generally things that people can identify with, and companies, for example, have wonderful slogans and sayings. And you think about some of the companies who've had their problems, or Wells Fargo, for example. I'm sure that all over Wells Fargo, there was posters and banners talking about who we are and what we stand for. The key is what you won't compromise, and you will get challenged on those things, whether it's a safety thing or an integrity thing. When the pressure starts to happen inside an organization, the question is, do you stand by your values? Do you treat people with dignity and respect? Are you that leader that can put their head on the pillow at night and know that although the outcomes may not be what you had hoped for them to be or wanted them to be, you did it the right way, and you did it ethically and morally correct. And so I think that that's so important, that values become an important part of who you are as an individual and what you represent as a company. And so for me, it's those three questions. Who am I? What do I stand for? And what are the things I won't compromise?
Mm. And Rocky, you also say it's what you do when no one is watching that counts. Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, I think that when, we all seem to have a much better stage presence. So when we're in a room or in a meeting, it seems like we handle ourselves generally in a much more appropriate fashion, and we follow those values. But it's when no one's watching that counts. It's that moment when you're kind to an individual, or someone needs some help, and maybe you take them for a walk around the building and help them through a difficult time. Those are the times when no one's watching. You may not get any accolades for it, but that's when your true character comes out. When there's a difficult thing going on, when there's it's like when we were kids. My mom used to always say, when someone came to visit, they eat first and you eat last. And so that same kind of approach is important in business as well. Are you a servant kind of leader? Are you the person who walks around the building and you're approachable as the leader? So, or someone, are you the leader that someone has to make an appointment to come and see you? I think that if you're that leader that's approachable, and if you're that leader that walks the floor and gets to know his or her people, is comfortable with the basics of yes and please and thank you, I appreciate all you do on behalf of our organization, that goes a long way for your people, and it goes a long way for your style. And those are the things that you do when no one's watching.
Yeah, I used to do martial arts like longer than 10 years ago, in 2003, 4, 5, when I was a teenager, when I was in my late teens. And I noticed whenever the instructor was there, most people would, when the instructor was watching them, most people would train harder. They'll just start performing better. But the best ones were the ones that were doing good all the time, whether the instructor was watching them or not.
That's a great example, analogy. That's absolutely correct.
But it happens automatically as well. Sometimes even the best one, when the coach was watching you, you just start performing better. It happens automatically. It just happens automatically.
I think so. But the true character and the true sense of who you are comes out, as to your point, when no one's watching. And my dad, rest his soul, who, you know, taught me these values as a child growing up, would always say to me, there's always two people watching, you know, the man upstairs and then you in the mirror. So you always know the things that you've done and the approach that you've taken and the way you've done, you know, gone about your business, because you look in the mirror and you know whether you did I do the right thing? Did I have an opportunity to, you know, give someone a simple act of kindness, to give someone a simple hello, or pick them up on a tough day? I had the chance to do that. I had a chance to be polite and respectful of someone. Did I seize that opportunity, or did I look the other way and was it my own world? And so for me, you know, he always used to say to us, it's what you do when no one's watching that counts. But remember, there's always two people watching. So that always stuck with me as a child and as an adult growing up.
Yeah, it's like that example I gave, like when I was doing martial arts. The people who performed best were the ones that did well, whether the coach was watching them or not. The ones who went home and they used to go home and train even harder by themselves. It's like the students in school, the ones that go home and read more and do more homework, they perform better than the ones that just go than the ones that just go out to play and stuff. So talking about reading, we all know that leaders are readers, and you've got your own book. You're an author. Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And your book is called Tighten the Lug Nut, right?
Yes, sir. Tighten the lug nuts.
What you coined that term, tighten the lug nuts. What does that mean, Rocky?
So the book is a book full of stories that tie together my career and the many lessons that I've learned along the way. And in the book, there's this one chapter where I talk about the tighten the lug nuts. And so basically the way the story goes is I was out visiting one of our operations, and as I was approaching a supervisor to talk to him or her about something I needed them to work on and something I thought was important for us to get fixed, I noticed that one of the vehicles had some loose lug nuts. And so as I approached them, I was talking to, you know, they were all, you know, excited to see me. I was a very senior manager at the time. And so they looked at me and I said, hey, I got a really big opportunity for you. It's something I think that you can take care of that really help our organization. But before you do that, got a vehicle over here that's got some loose lug nuts. You got to get it fixed. And he's like, oh, yeah, I got that. But so excited to hear what it was that I needed or wanted him to do. And he was excited about trying to, you know, get it done and please me or impress me. Well, a few days later, I'm out looking for him, and he's overwhelmed now with something that's going on. I said, what's happening? He said, well, I haven't gotten a chance to get to what you asked me to do because today we had a problem with a vehicle. One of the vehicles, the driver thought maybe the front wheel was loose, and I have to send out a mechanic to go fix it. Everything's okay, no accidents or anything. But so I said to him, well, let me ask you a question. Is that the same vehicle I told you about? And he said, yeah. I said, well, why don't you just tighten the lug nuts? He looked at me and I said, listen, here's the lesson. When you allow important things, when those lug nuts were loose the other day, it was important. It became urgent when the vehicle was driven, and now it's got a potential problem. So now you have to stop everything. Well, in life and in business, if you allow important things to become urgent, you can only handle so many urgent things. You get overwhelmed. So tighten the lug nuts. Don't allow important things to become urgent. And now you know what that's like. That's you get an email and you don't follow up on it, and next thing you know is stop everything. We got to get this fixed. Or you got, as you were talking about, you know, students in school, you know, they got a final coming up or a project coming up, and they wait to the last minute and they're working on it all night. And you think, well, you were given that assignment 3 weeks ago. You could have at least begun the process. And so for me, you know, the book is called Tighten the Lug Nuts, and the lesson is don't allow important things to become urgent. Take care of them when you can, and reduce the amount of urgent things that you have to juggle.
Who did you write the book for?
I wrote the book for leaders, but for me, leaders are more than the obvious. I think sometimes people believe leaders, you know, it's about a title. I'm a CEO or a manager or a supervisor. I think we're all leaders at one time or another. And for me, leadership's about legacy. Do you leave things a little better than you found it? Are people better because of their time with you? Are their customers better? Are your customers better because they interacted with you? You know, are the share owners better because you're running their business? And so for me, leadership is more than just that title or just, you know, a name that you have. And so for me, I'll give you an example. Teachers are some of the greatest leaders. You know, if I asked you who is the politician that represents maybe your area where you live, you may or may not know that, or most people may or may not know that. But if I said to you, or if I said to a group of people, who is that teacher that made a difference in your life? Everybody stops and thinks about a teacher and whatever grade that changed their life or got them to think about things different or touched them in a special way as a teacher. Well, then that's really a leader, right? Because they made a difference in their life. So for me, leaders are teachers, they're parents, they're coaches, soccer coaches. They're people that make a difference in someone's life. And by that extension, we're all leaders, I believe.
Yeah, I still haven't forgot the teacher that taught me how to read
Right? Think about that,
when I was in primary school. I still remember his name as well.
Isn't that amazing? So
Yeah,
by that extension of leaders leaving a legacy and making things better than they found it, he really is a leader. He may not call himself a leader, or she may not call himself a leader, but they are by the fact that they've made a difference in someone's life.
definitely. And talking about customers, Rocky, when it comes to leadership, you put the majority of your stock in the customer. Why is that?
Well, in business, the revenue is the lifeblood of the organization. And I also believe that the customer is both internal and external. And so the external customer is the obvious one that you and I can talk about. If we're in a retail establishment, it's the customer that enters our place of business and is going to buy a product or service. But I also think inside organizations, inside of businesses, you have internal customers. And so you may have the finance department working with the inventory control or the operations working with the sales team. And it's how we treat each other internally as customers that goes such a long way to the atmosphere that we create inside an organization. And so I place great value on customers externally for the revenue that they bring to the organization and that lifeblood of the organization, but also internally how we all kind of, you would say, play in the sandbox together, and how do we all get along, and how do we support each other. How do the internal customers work with each other? It creates that harmony inside an organization that really gets you humming and gets you really working well together. So I think that's so important as well.
And Rocky, what's one thing you want anyone looking to be a better leader to know?
Well, I think that what's important when you ask that question is, I think sometimes leaders think it's always about them. It's not about you. It's about your people. It's about the people in your care. It's about the people you're trying to lead. And I think sometimes, and we've all worked for that leader or that manager or supervisor, when things are going tough, they're looking at you saying, well, you don't know what it's like to be me, and you don't know how much pressure I'm under. And you're looking at them thinking, well, okay, but you signed up for this. You wanted to be.
It's your job. It's your job, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, so they make it about themselves, and I don't think it's about me. It's about us, and it's about what we're trying to accomplish together as a team. And I think that's so important. So I think sometimes, leaders sometimes forget that, and it becomes internally focused. And then the second piece of that is, if it's about legacy, then what do you want your legacy to be about? How do you want people, when they think and hear your name, how do you want them to respond? Do they respond, hey, I may not have agreed with everything that Rocky said or how we went about doing it, but I'd work for him again. Or I think, he always treated me with dignity and respect. Is that what you want your legacy to be? Because I think you have to start to get some vision of, how do I want people to look at me? How do I want people to think of me? And as I said before, they may not always agree with me. They may not always be happy with me. I may have to make some tough decisions that they're not happy with, but they know I did it the right way. They know I treated them with respect and dignity. They know I communicated with them, and that I took the time to think of them as as a person as well.
Awesome, Rocky. And so, Rocky, if anybody wanted to contact you, where can they contact you?
Well, you can reach us. You can reach me, especially on my website. It's www. It's the number 3. And then the word 60, SIXTY, managementservices.com. So 360managementservices.com. Very interactive website. You can email me. It's rockyromanella@gmail.com. The book is on Amazon, so it's and they do a great job fulfilling. Barnes and Noble online, but Amazon really they do a great job with it there. You can buy the book. When you're on the website, you can see the book. I try to post up on the website as much as I can. I have different topics like the Coach's Corner, talking about different ways to coach and work with your people. There's some podcasts that come up. We'll put our podcast up on the website as well, which would be nice for people to listen to. And then we have some other topics there too. You can sign up if you need a keynote speaker. You can sign me up, or if there's leadership training you want to do inside your organization, you can see some of the topics that we do. So it's a very interactive website. It's come a long way. I'm also on the social medias, Facebook, really doing a lot on Instagram. Actually, myself, learning it and trying to do as much as I can myself on Instagram. So we're 360 Management Services on Instagram, and I think you'll see some fun but educational things on it as well.
I'm just curious, Rocky. How did you come up with the name 360, and what does it mean? Is it 360 degrees? Is it 360 degrees?
Yeah, it's that holistic view of things. I've always felt like it's important when you're coming up with a solution to make sure that it's a complete solution and that you build a process that has some sustainability, right? You don't want to fix something today and 6 months from now come back and fix it again, or have to rework something because you did not consider the training of your people maybe in it, or how is it going to impact the customer in a longer term fashion, or making sure that in that process all the constituents are represented and you take a full view of it. So for me, this 360 view gave me a chance to look at things holistically and build a much sounder solution as well as a more sustainable solution.
Rocky, I want to thank you again so much for coming on the podcast to tell us about leadership.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and I hope your audience enjoys the book. I love to get feedback on it, and generally, one of the first comments I always get is people tell me their favorite story. Each chapter has its own little story, analogy, or a way to tie things together. And so I love hearing from the readers who they'll tell me, "Hey, this was my favorite, great book, but I love this part. I love this story." So please feel free to tell me your favorite story in the book. It makes me feel good.
Definitely, I'll leave the book in the show notes as usual, as I always do. And I want to thank all the listeners for tuning in. If you know anybody that this interview would benefit, please share it. Please share it with them. Please share it with them. Please also let me know what you think in the comment section and subscribe. And I'm Jamil Jama. This is The Law of Business, and that was Rocky Romanella's interview. Thank you all very much for listening.